All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles Podcast, brought to you by Huntworth. Huntworth gear for all types of weather, all types of terrain, all types of budgets. It's clothing that just works. And right now at Huntworth, they've got their winter clearance event going on until February 15th, 20 to 50% off everything on the site. And some of my favorite gear is on sale right now. Elkins vest. I wear that basically all season long with just a sweatshirt underneath all the way into November. That's on sale right now for $69. And their Winstead rain suit. So each piece is $51. And it's hard to beat, for right about $100 to have a good, durable set of rain gear. I actually killed my buck in Kansas wearing their rain gear this year. So get over there, check that out, huntworthgear.com. And over at latitudeoutdoors.com, they have opened up their outlet as well. They got some knee pads on there, the tan Ranger 33s. They got their original dump pouches, some suspenders, a platform pocket, amongst other things. So get over there, check that out. And they do have the new Method 3s in that Ranger green. So those are up on the site as well. So latitudeoutdoors.com. And you can use code BHC to save 15% over there. Not sure if you can double that up on the outlet stuff, but it never hurts to try. So check them out, latitudeoutdoors.com. A couple events that are coming up for the Muskegon Bowman's Club. So for you ASA shooters, the weekend of February 1st, there's going to be an indoor 3D ASA event at the Muskegon Bowman's Club. A couple of the Patreons are going to be there shooting it. I'm going to be shooting it. A couple other guys, Jake, and I think we're going to try and get Nate over there to shoot it as well. But that's going to be a fun time. We're going to shoot it on Sunday. Go over to either the Muskegon Bowman website, Muskegon Bowman Facebook, or ASA has their list of events and times up on there. So just a little heads up on that. And then we are doing our fundraiser dinner for the MB Archery Foundation, basically to raise money for the kids' archery programs here in Muskegon. We're doing that. So that's going to be April 18th. So we're going to have the tickets on sale for that here coming up. Same deal as last year. We're going to have some of those high dollar tables as well as the early bird packages going on sale February 1st. So if you have anything that you would like to donate, silent auctions, if you work with any companies and you'd like to donate, if you have any money that you'd like to donate towards that for tax purposes, you're trying to offload some money, the MB Archery Foundation is nonprofit, 501(c)(3). I can get you all that tax information. Little plug there, just to help out the club, help out the MB Archery Foundation. So that being said, this podcast, we're diving into kind of some of the regulations that they are working on for Michigan. A lot is going on online. And we've got Josh Arbogast on here to kind of talk about what's happened at the last couple of meetings, what the agendas are going forward, when this stuff gets voted on, what they're voting on, when it's going to take place, and kind of how you, the listener, the sportsman, can get involved, have your voice heard, and what are the meetings that are the most important to actually get it to the meeting, get your voice heard, and so that you can make a difference here in the state of Michigan. So that being said, as always, thank you for listening. Enjoy the episode. All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles Podcast. Adam Miller, Nate Rozeveld, and tonight, Josh Arbogast. And the non-typical, the Whitetail Project, public enemy number one. If you're a boomer and you want $2, you want baiting, you want nothing to change, you want to kill all the deer in Michigan forever, public enemy number one. How are you doing, Josh?
Fantastic. I love that. I'll take that title any day of the week. Get a little clap for him there. There we go.
So I wanted to bring you on here because you just were at the NRC meeting, the meeting in Lansing, the first one of the year. There's a change of the dates. There's things, and you kind of have an agenda as far as like you were telling me how the meetings are going to go, like what's happening in February, what's happening in March, what's happening in April. And then I think May is when they're voting on stuff or when changes are going to be made. So just real quick, if people don't stick around for whatever we talk about going forward, like the rest of the year for these meetings, like what is the timeline? What is happening?
Okay, so I guess the most important thing, because, they release the agendas a little bit late, usually the week prior to the meetings. So I can't really speak to what's going to happen next month. I can't speak to, what's going to happen in March. But I can say on a high level what we know about the deer regulations, like overview, 10,000 foot view. The DAT is going to come forth in April. That'll be April 8th. With the recommendations that they're going to make to the NRC. Very important meeting. I'm asking all of our sportsmen be there. And then following that in May is when those regulations are actually going to get voted on. There's already been some shakeups this year for the positive, I would say. So I think we're on a good trajectory. And yeah, that's, past that May point, everything kind of slows down. The regulations become less and less, and, guys stop showing up. And I think it's just important if we can make a push right now on guys that really want to see that change and really have some input that they want to add, getting them to those April and May meetings, and March and February as well. I just can't speak to the agenda on actually what is going to be talked about or what presentation is going to be put forth. But April, out of any meeting, I would say is the most important meeting of the year. If you're a deer hunter, if you're into deer regulation, if you want to see change, that's the meeting to be at, because as we know, a lot of times you get to that May meeting, they've had time to go back and talk amongst each other, and they kind of already have their mind made up. One guy coming in there in May probably isn't going to change it unless he's got some real stern facts. And that's the push right now. That's the information that I can give. There's a lot going on, but as far as the NRC goes, that's the deal.
Okay, and so DAT is a deer advisory team, right?
Correct.
NRC, Natural Resource Committee.
Correct.
Right. And so when are these meetings?
This year they've been moved to Wednesdays. In the past, they've always been on a Thursday. What I've been told is it's easier to get everybody in the same place in Lansing on a Wednesday. So, we look at it from a standpoint of citizen and government relationship. And there's also another side to it that I guess we don't get to see and we don't understand. And that's, all the legislators in Lansing being in the same place at one time. And what I've been told is Wednesday is an easier day for them to get together to hash out the issues that maybe there's laws stopping certain regulations from taking place and things of that nature. So the April meeting will be held on April 8th. It is a Wednesday. The May meeting is on May 13th, also a Wednesday. April will be in Lansing, 9:30 a.m. There still is not a location for the May meeting, but I'm hearing possibly Gaylord, potentially Traverse City. They haven't really nailed it down yet, but it'll be probably a North meeting for the May meeting.
And so when we're talking about these April, May decisions, and I believe it was last year, we didn't have a deer regulation handbook right up until the season started. Mm-hmm. Are we talking about changes for this upcoming for the 2026-27 season?
Yes. So that, I guess, let me back up. That's why this one is so important. So they work on a 3-year reg cycle right now is kind of how they like to do things. Gives things a time to take, you can observe the change that it makes from year to year, if it makes one. So 26 is the beginning of that 3-year reg cycle. So it'll be your 26, 27, and 28 season. You don't get a change this time, you're waiting 3 years probably before you can get an actual change in regulation.
Yeah, and that was just a quick jump in. I know like last year, because I was going to, started going to some meetings and stuff. I feel like this time or coming into like that May, April time, like the coyote thing was a big deal. So like we kind of like assembled the troops a little bit and said, hey, let's talk about why we think this is important, sprinkled in with some whitetail stuff, obviously. And then it sounds like we already have some good news with the coyote thing, and I haven't dug in too much about it, but I feel like that kind of has been checked off the list. Like, hey, we're back. Coyotes can be harvested year long. And then what time last year, for a second part, what time last year were we kind of pushing for doe with a bow in the UP?
I want to believe that, I think me and you both, I think we're at the April and May meetings.
Yeah.
But May last year was when they did that vote, and, we kind of threw a reel together and had, if you remember that time frame.
Yeah.
That was a May meeting, I believe.
So the only reason why I bring those two things up for guys who are listening, who are probably a lot like how I was until we have a voice, and you feel like you accomplished something last year. And now, like, I'm sure the coyote guys are all like super excited. Maybe it didn't quite go the way they wanted to, but hey, we've got a win here. And when doe with a bow and the UP went, it felt like, holy cow, they actually do care about the everyday outdoorsman and like wanting to make hunting better in Michigan or make the deer, biology or, all that stuff better. And it finally felt like, holy cow, like our time is actually validated. When I was always like led to believe that it doesn't matter what we do, blah, 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 insert any sort of thing there. But from my experience, it does not seem to be that way. It seems like, hey, there actually is a willingness to change.
Yeah, I think we came in kind of at the right time too. I was kind of one of those guys, long time listener, first time caller, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like paying attention, but not jumping in and going to these meetings and kind of talking to these people, developing those relationships, and looking at those past commissions. I don't know that we would have the same rapport 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, that we do today. And there's already kind of starting to be a turnover. There's a new commissioner coming on, and Dave Anthony, just his term was up. He phased out. And, it's like they're playing musical chairs up there. And that's why it's so important when you get a good sitting commission like this, i.e. the coyotes, right? We've dealt with that, spoke to it, been paying attention to it for close to a year. And it comes to a closed chapter last month in the form of a win. So, I think you get a good commission and you utilize it. If they're listening, it's time to be there.
Oh, 100%. Because the guy I don't know if he lives in Traverse City still, but he was like, one of the meetings I went to last year was his first meeting. And the questions he was asking and the care you could tell, I was like, yeah, this guy is for us, he wants to do the right thing and was actually like asking the right questions and paying attention. Some of the people up there didn't really want to be there, right? And it's nice to see people stand up there and ask a question and want to elaborate. And they were actually like, when someone like me who no one knows or anyone else got up there and spoke, they intently were listening and even some of them taking notes. So that to me is a huge win from a political jargon standpoint, I guess, from the stuff that you've been told, for all these years.
100%. You're talking about Brandon Fewens. He was the newer guy, and still to this day, even at the last meeting, I was paying attention to him, and somebody gets up there and they ask a question, or, they were giving their presentation. He didn't understand something. He stopped them and got an understanding on what was actually going on. And a lot of times, some of this stuff is going over some of these guys' heads, and they just, might not care to ask that question and learn, but he cares to learn, which is good to see, and the audience sees that. We
Yeah.
see that as sportsmen. You know, you can recognize that. You ask a question about a food plot, this guy wants to know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to see.
Now, I guess I'm going to address the elephant in the room with kind of like what's going on. I mean, everybody on social media is always going to be an asshole. I mean, that's just the way that it is because everybody has their own thing. And, you know, I'm looking here at this 3-man panel, and I'll give Nate all the crap in the world because he is Mr. Private Land, Managed Land guy. I don't shoot deer unless they're, you know, I've named them. They all got names. I got super bunch of history with them. And you know, Josh is he's built himself the Shangri-La to hunt every waking moment that he possibly can on public land. And you know, if he can hunt, he's going to be hunting. And I don't think, you know, maybe he's got history with these deer, but he just wants a good experience to go out there. And for me, I'm just out there to have a good time. And I'm not out there drinking and carrying on with my buddies. I mean, I don't mind that either, but I love being in the woods. I love the surprise. I love the validation of being out there, putting it all together. And I don't think any of the three of us are trying to impose our way upon anybody else. But we don't really want to be told what we have to do either. And we would like to see hunting become better. And I know at least Nate and I have at different success levels for trophy animals or whatever you want to call it, have an extensive spread of states that we've hunted in. And the deer hunting in these other states, there's a reason that people go to these other states. And there's a reason that guys like me who in Michigan, it's like, man, I don't understand what's going on, can just walk in and see deer that I would kill in Michigan every single day. And I don't think that these other states are like better than Michigan. I don't think that, you know, there's anything else other than the management that's happening in these other states. You know, maybe some of these states have a few less bow hunters. I'll grant you that, but you know, something has to give in this. So I want to ask you, Josh, like, because it dawned on me Friday night, I was at our Bowman's Club at a chili shoot. I was talking to a guy who's a very good hunter. He hunts out of state. He's passing tons and tons of bucks on public land here in Michigan, showing me videos, and I'm like, holy shit. But he was saying, like, you know, we need to make a change. Needs to happen. Something needs to happen in Michigan. And I said, he's like, we need to get a group of guys together. I said, hey, I've got the guys. Like, I'm talking to them, like, you know, on Sunday. I'm going to talk to, they're making the push for it. But then he was telling me like what his idea for Michigan was and like what he would like to see, like to go back to like the DMUs for doe tags and things like that. So when you're rallying the troops, when we're rallying the troops, when we're getting people to go there, how are we getting people all on the same page? Or making sure that the message is not just Josh and his merry men, and they're the loudest ones in the room, right?
Yeah, we don't want a diluted message. We want a consistent message.
Correct. So, you know, here, and you guys are both a part of it. I have, what I'm trying to do, why I started the Whitetail Project was hunter recruitment for people that I believe were solid speakers, that were a good impression and made a good image of themselves and those around them, right? I don't care that somebody might not have a differing opinion, but what I do care about is not being involved with people that are going to get up there, scream and yell and take their ball and go home when they don't get their way. And anybody's welcome to go to these meetings. I would never stop anybody from voicing their opinion as a sportsman. I'm all for, we have that platform. Thank God that we have that platform, that we can go to that podium and make our speech. But that being said, I think most of the guys that we talk to have kind of a common theme, at least the ones that I talk to. I know most people agree that one buck is a very good starting point. At one point I was a super APR guy, right? Me and Adam have talked about this, but yeah, I think ultimately, one buck is a good starting point. I don't see any biological reason why we need to have a second buck tag other than hunter satisfaction. And the more that I get into this, the more I realize hunter satisfaction is why we're in the situation that we're in. So ultimately, I'm ready to give something up, and getting everybody on the same page is just outreach. That's really all it is. Because I would never stop somebody from having their own ideas. Now, I can tell you why I have mine, but I'm never trying to cancel anybody else's idea out. I really just want to get people there.
Yeah, and like I say, this is just, like I said, I wanted to make sure that it was clear that it wasn't just like, hey, this is our idea and I'm trying to just be like a lobbyist. So I'm just going to say, like, this is our agenda. We're getting our people together. And, we kind of saw that with some of the, I don't know if it was like I don't think it was the deer advisory team last year. I don't remember what they called it, but when they had the two groups, the lower and the upper, and
the DMI prior to the DMI,
yeah.
when there was the clicks that just, they said, they got together and they said, this is what we're going to do, and I just wanted to make it clear that that wasn't the case. It's not just like, hey, we're all going to be on the same message. We're just going to, this is what we're going to say. This is how we're going to say it, just so that they hear, it's just about essentially articulate, passionate sportsmen who can be adults and essentially can agree to disagree and can have some concessions, can say, if we want a better deer herd, if we want a better deer hunting in this state, there has to be some change. Now, I'm not going to get everything that I want. Nate's not going to get everything that he wants. Josh isn't going to get everything that he wants. But we have to do something because what we're doing right now isn't working. So let's start one thing. And if we could please use some science and then look at some data and then in 3 years reevaluate that data.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's my tipping point with that argument, right? Because I think one of the things that has the department spooked is that they want to pull one lever at a time. They want to try one buck, give it 3 years, and then maybe we'll shift gun season 3 years later, and then 3 years later. But here we are, we're compounding, right? And by the time we get these things done, we're going to be 50 years old. Assuming that something passes every 3 years. Adam, are you 50? You're smiling over there.
He's as old.
I'm what am I, 43?
Oh, you're not that old. No, but you get what I'm saying. At some point, as a consumer, right? That's all we are. We're hunters, we're licensed buyers, we're consumers. At some point, as a consumer, I don't care what level gave you the numbers, what lever that you pulled gave you the numbers and the outcome and the product that we're looking for. I want it now in my lifetime. And I would like to see it for all the time that, we're putting in. And so if they pull multiple levers at one time, it doesn't bother me. Now, from a biologist standpoint, which I'm not, but I understand their side of things where they're like, all right, well, let's pull this lever and see what effect it has. Let's pull this lever and see what effect it has. But as a consumer, I don't care about that. I want to see a better product on the table, and they're hearing that term better product because it came up in the finance committee prior to the NRC meeting. They used the term better product that they're hearing all the time.
Mhm.
So I'm not alone there. There are people saying this, and
But
I
the thing
just
is like, so for me, from like a scientific background, right?
Mhm.
The inverse is also true.
Mhm.
So if you pull all these levers and it goes to shit, you don't know which one caused it.
Correct.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
that's where it gives pause, right? So that's also a problem. And then you'll have just as much infighting and name calling
So let
because
me ask you
you
something.
wanted these things.
Let me ask you something. What lever are you going to pull in Michigan to where it's going to get worse?
Well,
Just theoretically speaking, if we were, how do we get worse from here? We got 2 million deer on the landscape, estimated. Say it's actually not an estimate. That's actually what it is. Are we going to kill them all off?
well, let's go with the naysayers, right?
Mhm.
Let's go, and I'm going to put Nate in the category. Okay. So, we go to one buck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't change our mentality. So we say that our only 6% of hunters kill 2 bucks. And now we only have 1 buck tag and nobody changes anything. And we're just whacking all the good genetics. Like we're just, the first thing. And the same thing would happen with the APRs in theory, is that every deer with 3 on a side, dead, So those things are could be true, right? So now we just have, and I mean, because with the APRs, so one of the things I'd like to bring up with the APRs, and I would love, and I think it would be good to go back and take a look at some of the data from like the APR studies, because if it is on this 3-year cycle, they had to have been tracking something as far as, because the hunter satisfaction is there, right? But the first couple of years that went into effect, like where I'd hunted sometime with Frank, big gate across this property that said APR suck, screw the DNR. I mean, like 4x8 sheets of plywood across this gate. And now they are singing a completely different tune. Move that to, I've talked about it on this podcast quite a bit, our property in the UP, we have genetics where the deer don't have brow tines. So every deer that has 3 on one side is fair game. Whop, dead. And you've got these monster 4 points running around, these monster, and deer are with these weird genetics where you just get a glimpse of them or whatever, especially holds true with a rifle. And that's why you've got these. And I understand that, one thing could be true where you completely separate the UP and the lower Michigan, but for the rifle season type things where you have if the rifle hunter is king in Michigan, right? And in the UP, it's even more so. You get these glimpses of these deer and these racks at these distances. Those deer live and they have poor genetics and they live because of APRs. So that's an instance where I don't necessarily know that it's bad, but that's not going to win you any,
Brownie
favor
points
with the public.
Yeah. So I can talk a little bit about like APR versus 1 buck rule. Like I absolutely hated the 1 buck rule 5 years ago, let's say, because that was, a lot of it was a selfish reason. And because I love, being able to have 2 buck tags in my pocket. I mean, I shot 2 bucks this year, 110 miles apart from each other, right? Like I kind of cover a pretty big area, not quite as big as Adam because he goes to the UP, but I'm traveling, through different properties, and I like that. I can shoot bucks here, and then I can go shoot bucks there, whatever. And I was a big proponent for APRs. I seen how they worked in the Northwest 12, and it made sense. And now that we're pushing for this 1 buck rule, I really had to spend a lot of time thinking about it and understanding if it was something I wanted to get behind, and I had to like think about it. I wrote a note here, which is kind of cool that Adam Ray brought up, like 1 buck rule myths, and the 6% only killed 2 buck tags in Michigan. That was one thing I wrote down, because that is what sold me on not supporting 1 buck rule 5-7 years ago, whenever that was, when we were pushing for APRs in the state. And then I really had to think about it. And some of the stuff I thought about is because now with the app, you can see like real world harvest data kind of like when you want to. And I have to come to the conclusion that, guys like us, who I'm saying us as in people who maybe spend more than, 10 days a year in the woods, who are scouting our butts off, who are hunting public land out of state, doing all these crazy things. Like, we're a little crazy, right? Like, we're not I don't think we may think we're the normal hunter in Michigan, but I have grown to realize that we are not. I think every year more and more guys are getting more serious, but when the rifles come out, that's when the majority of the deer get killed in the state of Michigan, and that is when there's more hunters in the woods, and that is when a lot of bucks get killed then. And the 6% of tags, I think 6% of hunters that do fill the 2 tags are those guys. There's some of those guys who get just like, they go hunt November 15th and holy crap, like 2 nice 8 points came out, pow, they got them. Like, great. That's a minimal amount of guys. But I really think the 1 buck rule it's going to do the same thing that APR did in the Northwest 12. It is going to make guys think before they shoot. And then the first year or two, they might have some of the worst hunting of their life because they did not punch a buck tag on a 4-point or a spike or whatever. But that same thing's going to happen with the 1 buck rule. A buck's going to come out, and they might take that little bit of time. It's November 15th, first time I've been in the woods. Man, is that really the buck I want to shoot? And then their opportunity is gone. And then all of a sudden, that's going to spread much quicker than I think some other things. So that's kind of been my like thought process. Like, I got to look at this from like take a step back and like how many hunters we have in Michigan and how that's going to affect. And then you just pray that less bucks get killed in the year, and those guys might be like, man, I didn't shoot that 4-pointer or that 8-pointer or that little 6-pointer, whatever it may be, the 1.5, 2.5-year-old buck. And then a doe comes by and they actually, punch a doe tag, which they might never have shot a doe in their life, or they might shoot 2 does instead of only shooting 1, because there's more opportunity for doe harvest than there is buck harvest, is what you're hoping for. And it sucks that Michigan's such a big state that I see it, right? Like, where I hunt, where I live versus where I travel to, and talking to Adam when he goes to UP, and then talking to other guys that go to UP, is such a different landscape throughout the entire state that it's hard to win everyone over. But I do think that the 1 buck rule it's going to move the needle in a direction. And I think it's the easiest way to pull a lever and see if that change happens as much as we want it to.
Yeah, I think so. I was the same way you were when I was like super pro APR, like 6%, that doesn't make sense, right? But when you're looking at it now as a state, and I always say this, like, Michigan hunters can't self-regulate. Like, I say that all the time. However, to give them credit, over 70% of our harvest now is 6 points or better statewide. Yeah. So we're already at the 3-point APR, and that's 1 point. Second point being the 6%, there's a 30% differential between guys that are, what they're saying, guys that aren't reporting, right? There's a 30% of people aren't reporting their deer still. So that 6% goes up right there. And then on top of that, I don't think that it's just about the 6%. It's about the other 94% of people. What are they doing when they're in the woods? When they are not passing or waiting to pass deer? Are they passing on does that they see that they should probably be controlling the herd? Are they waiting on a second buck? It's like, what's going through the other 94% of people's head? Because that's the culture change right there, is in those other 94% of people. We're going to figure out real fast what those guys are doing if we get a 1 buck regulation.
So what is the magic wand, right? So, I mean, I can think of like a couple of scenarios where, like with the numbers that you're telling me and the things that quote unquote people and when everybody says like they say, or they, I would say like, who's they, right? Like they're coming for you. They want this, they want that. Like, who's they? Like, who is this big person in the sky, right? So when we just think about like the state at large, like the hunter at the gas station buying the carrots, that and baiting isn't legal, right? So we're talking about that. That's the guy that I'm talking is the they, right? And I think that a lot of times those are the people that are the loudest online, right? That's just my opinion. I want to shoot 2 bucks. I want this. I want this. I want this. So I think one of the things that could probably do the best is taking away 3 months or whatever we have of gun season, and moving gun season outside of the rut. You could keep all your buck tags. You could kill them with an actual, real, freaking flintlock muzzleloader, not whatever rifle you pick up that day. A traditional bow. Like if you had like a primitive weapon season instead of grab your AR and go blasting season during muzzleloader, that. But something, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of ways to like appease people, and it's just about being creative, right? So if you, and what got me to just thinking about that is like, if you wanted to still have 2 bucks, if you say, okay, you can have 2 bucks and take away all the extra gun seasons and then move gun season. I mean, it would, I forget, like it was like the surveys that you would get where there was a whole bunch of bad options. There was like no good option that you'd ever want. Like which ones of these things would you choose? But if you had like, okay, keep 2 buck tags and move the season to 1 week, first week of December or something, or Thanksgiving weekend or whatever. 1 buck tag, nothing changes. Actual muzzleloader season. Or like keep everything the same. 1 buck tag, no muzzleloader season. And you can earn a buck tag in December, and after December 15th, if you shoot a doe with a muzzleloader or during muzzleloader season, then you can get another tag. If you want to up your harvest of does, if you want to do this, you'll figure out you want more people in the woods when it's freaking blistering cold out, like Josh knows about, like I know about, like Nate knows about. Give them the opportunity to get another tag when nobody's hunting anyway.
So here's the thing with that guy buying corn at the gas station. He's not following the rules as it is anyway, so nothing is going to appease him. It doesn't matter what you try to do to appease him. He's going to be upset. And that's the cycle that we're in right now, is the department trying to make all the hunters happy over and over again. Okay, well, here's some extra opportunity. Here's late doe firearm. We're going to make muzzleloader an illegal rifle. Okay, doe harvest isn't going down. Whoa, we're out of time. What else can we throw in there? Yeah. What else can we give the gun guys? We have so much opportunity that we can't think of anything else, and it still hasn't worked. So I'm not for, it sounds bad, but I don't want these guys' opinion. I'll be honest. Like, they're free to voice it to the commission, but I've really dialed back on like posting on, some of these forums and stuff like that because I'm getting blocked. Guys are, oh, you're stupid. It's just,
You're just a
it's
trophy
crazy.
hunter. Yeah.
Yeah, trophy
that's
hunter.
tough.
When this guy
Like,
wants to shoot 2 spikes because any deer's a trophy, right? That's what they say. And I just, the gun season thing, like I'm pushing for that. Like that's something that
yeah.
I'm speaking towards is moving rifle season back and decreasing it. Who am I, right? I'm just a hunter. But that's one of the main things that I'm pushing for is moving gun season back to the week of Thanksgiving, cutting it by 7 days I think that's still a fair amount of time. Guys are off that week, a lot of them. You see a spike every year around Thanksgiving. It just makes sense. That muzzleloader is something I spoke to at the last meeting. Give the muzzleloader guys back their opportunity.
Yeah.
I know a lot of muzzleloader guys that don't go out for muzzleloader anymore, but they still don't go out for they don't take a 450, right? You took their season, so now they're not hunting it anymore. These are still guys that archery hunt, but their time away in the woods with their muzzleloader has been taken from them, so give it back to them. It's not brain surgery. What we've done is we've tried to appease so many people because, in my mind, the department's approval rating has never been lower. We're talking about the DNR when I say the department, but their approval rating has never been lower, right? So they keep throwing these things at the wall trying to help the hunter, but the hunter's just getting even more pissed at them.
Yeah.
And it's like it's not making sense. So, I'll just throw it out there. $1, move gun season back to the week of Thanksgiving, make it 7 days, give the muzzleloader guys back their muzzleloaders, and enforce doe harvest by DMU. 4 things.
Yeah.
4 things. And
so, another thing too, like just something.
Happens.
Yeah, I agree. Like what Josh is saying, but like I didn't want to touch on this quick. Like Adam, I like your idea. Like I've thought about similar things like that, like what you were bringing up. Like, hey, earn a buck, or like look at Iowa, look at all these other states. They shoot multiple bucks, and they got some of the best, herd health across the landscape. But I think just from and I'm just speaking on opinion and what I've seen with the few meetings I've been to, I think making a change in that direction, there's a lot of more behind the scenes or legislation or law stuff going on that's a lot harder to do than just going to a $1. Or we still have the same gun season, they just renamed it to extended rifle. It's still the same amount of time as what muzzler was, they just renamed it to do a whole revamp on changing when gun season starts or shortening or lengthening, like doing that kind of thing. I think there's a little bit more involved, and that's just how it feels to me. So I think that's why the push for the direction we're pushing right now is this way. And then also one thing I want to touch on is, I can't remember what meeting it was. I think it was the last meeting I believe I went to last year. They had like all their data that they had compiled, like the survey versus the app, digital harvest reporting and that kind of thing. There were more does harvested in the extended rifle. However, there was a large percentage of bucks shot also in that extended rifle. So it's essentially they gave more opportunity, and it did not move the needle into increased doe harvest. It moved it actually to more bucks being shot. So it actually did not help our buck to doe harvest ratio at all. And I heard that and I was like, oh, that's just like, that's tough, because here you go thinking that, hey, you guys can use high-powered rifles and you'll be able to, shoot does very easily in this extended, and all guys are doing is waiting until the last day of that, and they wouldn't even shoot a doe, they would shoot a buck. And from a personal standpoint of, neighbors that hunt and, the group of people you have that about, I cannot tell you how many bucks have been killed that last 3 days of the extended rifle. That used to be muzzleloader season in the last handful of years. It's staggering. I would say almost as many bucks get shot that last, because it's the tail end of the rut. Bucks are wanting to replenish themselves by going to, like, me, I got great food plots, or a guy's got a really good corn tree that dumps corn really good every other day. Those bucks are now coming out of the rut, trying to replenish themselves. The perfect opportunity to shoot a buck is the tail end of December, once that rut's gonna, or sorry, not tail end of December, tail end of the rut, which is, about when that muzzleloader season will be wrapping up and they're shooting deer. That is what we do when we go hunt Iowa. We hunt Iowa, first gun is the December 5th-ish time. The amount of bucks I see kind of rutting, but there's some bucks that are still running. The majority of them, our faces are in the corn or in the bean stubble trying to put calories on, because winter is coming, baby. And we are good hunters and we are good killers in the state of Michigan. And that is when a lot of bucks meet their demise, is that. So yes, Josh, I would love that to go back to more primitive, or like Adam's saying, go flintlock, baby. Let's do this. Cause guess what? If I got to use a flintlock, you know what I'm using? The old Hoyt. Like I'm bow hunting. I'm not using no flintlock, So I think that would be a really good thing, but there's got to be something behind the scenes that makes that, kind of difficult.
Well, and one of the things that and they could change it however they wanted. They could they could say that you just couldn't kill a buck. You could kill a second buck, but it couldn't be until, when those seasons were open, but kind of like they do right now with your tags are still good, like where Josh is and where you're at in Kent County and over in the, till February, your tags were good into January till the 31st, for late antlerless with a bow. They wouldn't necessarily have to do it. They could just make the regulations whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
But one thing is, when you go to one buck, when you go to some of that stuff, problem that I see is from the revenue standpoint, are they going to double the price of the tag because the state's going to take a hit from the money side?
No. So what they want to do, and this is where it's going to get sticky, right? This is where it gets sticky. Single tag's going away. It's the only way to keep revenue going is single tag goes away, combo tag goes to one buck, one doe, period. You get a doe tag with your combo tag still, and the funding wise, I'm looking at the report that they put out at the finance committee meeting, and I'm not mad at them. Ultimately, when they're trying to get a tag increase, when you look at the graph at inflation going up and our tag cost has stayed here for years. I mean, we had a little bump 10 years ago, a little bump, but inflation has soared. And our tags are still somewhat cheaper, not to get off topic, but they do need more funding, and getting rid of that single tag, I'm not mad at them for that. I think most guys buy a combo tag anyway. Whether or not it's for a second buck or what it's for, I don't know. But still, $40 a tag is still not unreasonable when you look at other states around us. I don't know why selling a single tag is a thing. That just caters to it's anti what we need to accomplish here in the state. And hunters need to get back to being stewards, period. And I still believe in my heart, right, that bow hunters are the stewards of the woods. Truly, I think you put a bow in a guy's hand and he's immediately connected to nature. But we're getting away from that.
Yeah.
We're starting technology, and all this stuff is pulling us away from that. Social media is pulling us away from that. And I just believe that single tag is not accomplishing anything. It's definitely not helping them accomplish their goals, and it's not helping us balance the herd either. Because if that guy's just buying a single tag just so he can shoot a buck, and doe never crosses his mind, he's not being a steward.
Dude, I kind of was thinking about that. I got a tag already. They made me buy one anyways. Might as well shoot that old nanny. You know what I mean? That might be a thing that guys never even thought about. But before we get, I do have a question, because we touched on it briefly, but I want to ask each one of you guys this. What is your definition of better hunting in Michigan? Because I think that is kind of everyone talks about, but no one really answers. I just want it better. So like Adam, and I think this is a really good group, right? Like we all three hunt differently, and have different, I think Josh's version of success in a year and mine and Adam's are all kind of different. But so what is your definition of better hunting in Michigan, Adam?
I don't know. I would say, obviously we have a gigantic deer herd, right? Like, and one of the things that I've always said from my hunting is that, like, as far as like a deer hunter, like I can go and find a deer, right? That's not a problem. Big bucks or bucks like are elusive to me in the state of Michigan. Now take me out of the state of Michigan and I can't think of any state that I have been in that in the span of 7 days or less, I haven't been able to be within bow range of a 3-year-old buck. And in Michigan, that is not the case for me at all. And, I talk about it a lot. Maybe that's my, comfort zone in Michigan. Maybe it's the way that I hunt. I say that I need to hunt the way that I do in Michigan, the way I hunt out of state. But it doesn't seem like could be that much of a coincidence that no matter what state, freaking Idaho, okay,
Yeah.
like,
yeah, even Tennessee, right? Like Tennessee, high pressured state, right? Guys talk about how southern states are harder. Like Tennessee, like you were finding bucks.
yeah.
So I do have a little rebuttal to that because I wanted to ask you first for a reason because you're the voice of what you just said. Like I can find deer and I'm happy with having fun and just shooting deer. Like that's kind of like your MO. Granted that you do pass deer and sometimes you don't take you might let a deer go because it's not quite what you wanted, but you're just like, I want to find deer and see deer and that's fun and that's like what you want. The thing that I had to think about was when I started listening to guys in the UP talk, how quickly we could lose that. Like if we don't have the crop supply of ag that we have in southern Michigan, then maybe I'm speaking of more of the southern part of Michigan because that is where we have way too many does, and that's what a lot of people who have spent more time than me or are more educated than me, they are screaming from the rooftops, we have too many does in this part of Michigan. And you're like, well, I love seeing deer or I love having opportunity, plenty of opportunity. I think it's crazy that our habitat can't support that for very long. If something catastrophic were to happen with crops or with something, like our habitat could go, or EHD is worse than we've ever had before because of overpopulation or something. So I've kind of had the approach of what can we do to get a better herd health? You don't think so, Adam? You don't think that's possible?
I'm not saying that that's not possible. But one of the things that you said earlier, and I know that it is true for, again, this is our echo chamber, right? So we are not the 10 sits a year guy, right? And I've grown up hunting in the UP. Now, granted, I've grown up hunting in like the most highly deer dense county in the UP, but that's not the only place that I've hunted in the UP. I've hunted in one of the portions of the UP that has the migration and all that. It's in the southern UP. I've not hunted in the northern UP. I have family that hunts up there and they do just fine. However, getting at what you said is like, we are talking about the state of Michigan. We're not talking about your backyard. Okay. So you said you killed deer here and 100 miles away. And I didn't say that I go in my backyard and I can find a deer. I said I can find a deer in the state of Michigan.
Yep.
So to me, if that were the case, if I was so concerned about, I mean, we're talking not just about my county, right? So when EHD hits, what do? You just whine and cry and pout? Like,
nope, I went north.
Yeah. So so that's just kind of why I shake my head. Like, I will grant you the fact that these things happen, but these things happen in other states. Other states have, I mean, hell, driving to Indianapolis, I had a very long conversation with Tom Taylor talking about the mule deer population and what they have in Montana because of the snow, wind, and when they're in the high desert and they have a drought and they don't have crops, the farmers just write it off, but the deer just can't write it off. They'll have a huge die off. And so then and Montana does a good job of managing the amount of tags that they put out for, but that's Montana doing it. And as Josh said, Michigan hunters can't self-regulate. So, we want to shoot our deer. So it doesn't matter if it has a 1-inch spike. If that's the only deer we saw, we're going to get our deer. But we're not, I mean, and, maybe we're not going to travel to do it because we shouldn't have to.
I'm just
so
looking at it.
That's just me. Yeah. That's just why I shake my head. But
I'm looking at it from like a health. If you have like Michigan from the biology standpoint, or like these people who are, studied this their whole lives or made it their passion, they are saying we do not have a healthy buck-to-doe ratio, and I feel like the healthier your herd is, the better it can withstand change or stuff like that. So why, as the consumer or as the taker, would I not want to have a healthier deer population and maybe aid in that? Was that a little doomsday, like, put the foil hat on, like, oh, the deer are all going to disappear if we don't take care of business when there's 2 million of them in the state? Yes, but I also am looking at this from like, I want my kid and my grandkids and like people to continue to enjoy it the way I do. And if we can push a narrative that helps the herd dynamics with a healthier population, I'm all for that. And that's kind of the point I was making.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think that like it's got to go back to a DMU system. It has to be like what you can handle and to do. And I guess like realistically, and that whole herd the health thing is correct, but that's why I said, like, when I was saying, like, in what could make it better or worse, or like, what do we need to push? It's like some sort of data driven metrics here to say, like, what is like, so we in this discussion have not put any sort of onus on what exactly a healthy herd is and what portions of the state is there a healthy herd here or there, or we're just being a doomsday saying like the whole state is unhealthy. It's
well, let's let Josh answer what he wants for better hunting, then he can lead us into what is considered a healthy deer herd.
Just real quick, to a point, I think, to Adam's point just now, being that there's so many different parts to this state, I think that accurately you can say that the health is different in every portion of the state, right? I think that there is merit in saying that. It also depends on who you talk to, because I hear guys in the Northwest 12 that love it, right? Like I talked to Kevin Vistison. He's a huge APR guy, loves it, thinks it's the greatest thing ever, especially because he came from over by me. But then you talk to guys that say they've over-harvested does up in the Northwest 12, and they swear by it that does have been over-harvested since that happened. So they are working there. I know of a heat map out there for doe harvest and what potentially is going to be a conversation for going back to DMU-based or county-based doe tags, getting away from 10 universal tags. Will probably be a recommendation that comes forward from the DAT. I know that the department loves 10 universal tags because farmers love 10 universal tags, and it's easier on them to give 10 universal tags. So we'll see where that goes. But again, this is where we come in as the consumer. This is what we want. If we think it's necessary to have DMU-based doe tags, which I see no downsides. Again, I'm trying to like pick things to where I see no downsides to, right? Only upside. That just makes sense. Now to go on and answer your question, Nate, what does a healthy deer herd look like to me? I always go back to buck-to-doe ratio. That's always what I go back to, and I think it's the common denominator in any problem anywhere in the state is your buck-to-doe ratio. So what it looks like through my eyes, and we've already talked about going out of state, and I'm just going to say, like, it's an enlightening thing to go out of state and see the way deer behave when there's less of them. And not that the numbers are the issue, but when the ratio gap is tighter, right? What you see and what I want to see, if you're asking me as a consumer, what it looks like through my eyes, what I want to see is a real rut here in Michigan. That's what I want to see. That's what I think is the ultimate experience for a hunter is deer, big bucks, daylighting, running around, chasing does, doing all this buck rut behavior. Like, that is the epitome of a good time in the woods to me. And it's not, that's, I talk this and I post about this and I do all these things, and it always comes back to Michigan's never going to be Iowa, and you're never going to have 180s running around everywhere because we don't have the soil. That has nothing to do with what I'm looking for. I want the hunting experience here to be better, not for myself, but for everybody. And I think if you haven't experienced that, then you don't really know what we're talking about. It's special to see, 10 big bucks running around in one day, right? Like, you get on and you just see, man, I mean, I could hunt all year and see 1 3.5-year-old deer, right? And I mean, I pound some public, so I'm with Adam, and that's not a testament to who you are as a hunter or who I am as a hunter. That's a testament to the state, and I've said before, there was a year where I documented everything that I saw, and I saw 26 bucks. I shot one. I think 20 of if I remember correctly, 20 of them were in bow range, and they were all under 6 points. And that's not to say that those deer wouldn't make somebody happy, but 26 bucks and one buck that was, a 10-pointer that I was interested in. Something's not adding up and something's not right. And that's where I hate saying that I want to be like another state. I don't want to. I hate when people say, well, let's be like Ohio or let's be like Illinois. We're not Ohio and we're not Illinois. We never will be. There's an imaginary line that separates us, and things change real quick when you cross that line. But what I want to see is getting to that hunting experience where our buck-to-doe ratio is so tight that there's a little bit more competition. Bucks are traveling a little bit further to get to does. It's just a behavioral difference there that I want to experience with my own eyes in my own state.
Amen. I want to see that buck that's, I know when he was dropped as a fawn. I've named him. I've seen him breed X amount of does and said, you know what, Sonny, you've bred enough does. Your time is done. That's what I...
You got some weird fetishes, Nate.
I'm just playing.
Listen to that private land guy go at it over there.
Yeah. Oh, man, I planted this food plot because he really likes this blend better than the other blend. I know I'm killing him at 5.5 because I got the food he wants. Oh, shoot.
But that's ultimately, like, all of those things are, for somebody hearing that could say, well, you're just trophy hunters, so you just want big bucks. I just want to go and see. Like, it seems so, for me, the world's worst bow hunter. It sounds so arrogant to say, like, I can just go out and find a deer. Like, we have so many deer in the state of Michigan that it should, especially if you have a rifle, it shouldn't be that difficult to just go find a spot on public land that has deer. Like, I don't know. And like I said, it sounds so absolutely arrogant. But now when you start to, like, well, now I have to shoot a buck. Well, now I have to but there's so many opportunities to shoot does. Like you should be in heaven, right? And so all this talk, it ultimately does boil down to the antlers, whether it's for us, what we're talking about, or the people who are grumbling online because we're going to ruin their hunt, or changes are going to ruin their hunt. But so for you, Josh, as you're laying out these things that you're proposing or that you want to propose, and I think it was with Jordan, or maybe you and Jordan both, when we had talked about this previously, it's like you have to ask for 100 things so that they can narrow it down. They can tell you no on 97 of them so you can get 3. Like, what is a win? You know, you want to have all the levers pulled at once, but what is considered for you a win? You know, what you got to ask for 10 things. Like what are you willing to concede? Like what's the number one on the hierarchy? What's, you know?
I'm not conceding, Adam. No, so I named 4 things earlier, right? Let's take muzzleloader out of that because I think that's why not? I don't see any reason why we can't return muzzleloader back to muzzleloader. I think it was a dumb thing to do, and I think that just needs to happen this year. Okay, so I'm going to remove that. DMU-based doe harvest needs to happen. If we've over-harvested deer in some parts of the state and we have an overabundance in other parts of the state, that needs to happen. We need to get a more accurate number on that. Period. Take that out. It leaves 2 things. 1 buck, move and reduce the gun season, and I'm going to stick to my guns on those 2 things. Like, those are the 2 things that I'm going to stick to my guns on. Like, if I got 1 buck, would I be happy? Yes. I would be very happy. But I'm not going to stop my campaign, I guess, until I get those 2 things. And that's just where I'm at. And I'm going to keep trying to garnish support from hunters, and, you know, the guy that wants to keep babbling on Facebook and pointing fingers and calling people names, he can keep doing that, you know, but I'm going to be the one that's going to the meetings and speaking my mind and trying to get others to go with me that are good people, not good hunters. I don't care what you kill. Reasonable people that are willing to put the resource first and hunter satisfaction second. Because if we do that, these things are going to happen anyway. And that's the important part that we need to nail down when we're talking about, well, what do you want? Well, what do you want? Okay, this is what I want. Doesn't really matter at the end of the day. What matters is we're doing the right thing for the resource and not the hunter, because we've done it backwards for so long here. You know, our hunting culture is so deep, and it's great. Don't get me wrong. I love being a Michigan hunter. But we've never really put the resource first. And that's what we need to do. And we need to ask those questions when we're thinking about what we want and what potential changes could be, you know, make things better. It's like, okay, this could make things awesome, but what's it going to do for the resource? And I'm really, really trying to eliminate things that I think are not necessary to help the resource.
And Nate, what do you think moves the needle the most towards the healthy herd, or the correct buck-to-doe ratios?
So it's kind of funny because I made a note while Josh was talking, and unfortunately, I think it's money. I think money will ultimately help move the needle the best by giving the state more money to manage the herd, right? Like Josh said earlier, like the DMU thing is extensive. It takes more effort. It takes all this stuff. And what does that mean? Money. 10 universal doe tags is easy. Like, right? Like you don't have to worry about it. Like everyone gets 10, have fun. If you got to go break down these DMUs, that means there's got to be surveys. That means there's got to be this. That means there's got to be that. You got to figure it all out. It takes time. So I think money would really help, and that may be the increased tag cost. Hopefully that money will go there. But like I can hear my dad's voice in my head right now. Show me where the money goes already. Like, the money's not even going to the right spot. So why would a tag increase help? Because who knows where that money's going? That's kind of like the one thing I think. But I do think to move the needle in the direction that I think the state needs, it's simple. We need to shoot more does, and I say pockets. It's bigger than that. And I think that feeling I have in the pit of my stomach is, I do not want there to be sharpshooters that come in and get hired to kill does and kill deer, because I feel like that could be an avalanche, or form an avalanche down the road. I seen it when CWD came up. I had a pretty bad experience with that, with sharpshooters. So I think I'm a little jaded in that regard anyways. So I don't like that idea. And one of the things I want to touch on, which just might kind of go off a little bit, but we've talked quite a bit about taking away an opportunity. The guys, let's say the normal Michigan hunters, shouting that we're just trophy hunters, you're taking away an opportunity for me. And I don't really understand that. What do you mean by opportunity? So if you can only shoot one buck, you need to shoot 2 bucks to have more opportunity. Why? Because you want to have a rack in your garage or a mount on your wall. Like, so who's the trophy hunter, right? Like, I know a lot of serious hunters who are, striving for things like I'm striving for, or whatever that may be, that I'm willing to give up a buck tag to try to, move the needle, as you said, in the right direction. So I get a little, I shake my head when I see that. It's like, man, some of the most serious diehard hunters I know that want to kill the biggest, baddest buck that they can hunt are okay with only having one tag. So where's the disconnect there? And guys who are screaming about, I need more opportunity, you're taking opportunities away from me. I don't understand what they mean by opportunity. Does that mean buck opportunity only, or is that deer opportunity? And like Adam was saying, I think there is plenty of deer opportunity throughout the state. Even if you are in an area that, I've seen it, like I drive a lot every year. There are areas of the state that you don't see very many deer from the highway. But guess what? In a short amount of time, I can travel a long ways and find a lot of deer. And I don't hunt public very often for whitetails, but I do walk a lot of public when I small game hunt. And I very rarely go walk a piece and I don't kick a deer up, or I don't see deer sign. So you can find that opportunity that you're worried about losing, even if we do change to 1 buck rule through the state.
And so one of the things that I've been like, I don't want to say like struggling with, but like in my mind, so we're not harvesting enough does. So we need to kill more deer. So less does helps the buck-to-doe ratio. And we need more of these bucks to live to help the buck-to-doe ratio. But if more bucks live and we still don't kill any more does, now we just have a plethora of deer, and it doesn't help anything anyways. And so maybe we still need the sharpshooter. Like,
that's one of my worries. To be honest, like, I'm fingers crossed that guys will. I think I made a post on Facebook on someone's thing, like, stating how I hope that those guys that maybe only shoot bucks or only shoot a doe will now shoot their first doe, consistently shoot a doe a year, or maybe consistently shoot multiple does a year because of the 1 buck rule. That is my biggest hope and my biggest thing that I don't know if we'll know until we see it and see what the data says. And that's obviously, it's like, hey, pull the lever. And it's like, fingers crossed once the lever's pulled, because it's going to take 3 years to push it back, and that is a little worrisome, but we can all agree on that. It's not trending in a positive direction, and we got to divert the water somehow. And that 1 buck rule lever and doe DMU lever seem to be the 2 most important levers that we should be thinking about pulling.
And the whole thing, and I have seen it, there's a few people who seem to be pretty vocal about it, but Josh, you had mentioned that the farmers want 10 doe tags, right? Well, these farmers can get crop damage tags. These farmers can let people on their land. These farmers can go kill the deer. I mean, they just want everybody else to kill the deer for them. I mean, is that kind of the what that's?
I can speak on that.
Saying?
I can speak on that just from my conversations with like Elliot Hubbard and some of these guys who have shot a pile of does. I'm talking, and I think Josh may even fit into that, like helping out farmers with these crop damage tags.
Yeah.
What happens is they shoot there isn't enough people doing that crop damage stuff or the doe harvest in season that when they do harvest a substantial amount of does if you think about does per acre that get killed, it's like woof, the new ones move right in because it's not a big enough area. So that's why when you look at the data, the amount of guys in the woods with a gun in their hand on November 15th and the amount of deer killed in that 3-day window or 2-day window, that is our biggest impact. And it blows crop damage tags out of the water. It blows early doe season kills out of the water. It blows late season or this urban hunt kills out of the water. Like, dude, the extended archery season in like the county I live in where Josh is on the east side of the state, the amount of does killed is like I felt pretty cool. I was like, man, I'm one of those percentage points that shot a doe actually in that time of year. So I think that's the problem, right? Like if we had like a substantial more guys who are like, yeah, it's 90 degrees, let's go kill some does. Maybe we would be doing a positive change, but it's like literally one farm is doing it and no one else around is doing it. So then they just fill in the space, fill in the void. The does move right back in.
That's a thing, and you just alluded to it. You know, I did pretty extensive amount of crop damage stuff this year, and I think I want to say he shot 14 in the summertime. And you know, at one time there was a shooters list, and you had to be on the shooters list. And if you wanted to take somebody with you, right, they had to be a shooter, and it was hard to get all that done. And a lot of farmers don't want the headache of changing the shooters list around, so they got rid of that to make it easier on them. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of work. You know, it's tough for people. I remember a day like I was literally laying on a field edge, dying. Like it's 95 degrees, and I was laying behind a log. My gun was propped up on a bipod, and I was just dying. You know, like it was super hot. Sun's at the top of the sky, just beating on me. I'm trying to like take a nap, wait for deer to come out. Just it, it sounds great. To get an early jump on getting some meat in the freezer and stuff and helping somebody out, but it's a lot of work because the minute that deer's dead, you're on it, right? You're quartering it up, you're getting it in a cooler. And you're sitting back down and get another one. And then you maybe pop another one, and then you're quartering it up, dragging it off, and getting it in a cooler. And it's just so much easier to hunt in season when it's 30, 40 degrees outside, and you don't have to rush. You don't have to worry about the meat spoiling. You can bring it home if you're dragging it, hang it overnight. Can't do any of that stuff in the summertime. Like you're just go, go, go. So I actually did some crop damage with Elliot this summer, and I think we shot 4 that day, and it was like shot 2 in the morning and went and got lunch and shot 2 in the evening, and it was just quarter. And I know one day I think Elliot, I think Jordan was with him, and they shot like 10 in a day or something, and I'm like, you guys are gonna be up all night long. Like just quartering. So it's a lot of work. One thing I will say, and I hate, like I said, pointing to other states, but we don't have a landowner tag here. And that's something that I think we're missing out on. We have access issues, right? Like we have major access issues. Like you said, the farmers have all the deer, they got the problems. Why aren't they solving their problems? Well, why aren't the farmers going to the commission and saying, we want a landowner tag, a landowner program? We want 5 5 tags for the price of our combo, so we can shoot 1 buck and 4 does at reduced cost. Or, you know, Iowa has a landowner program. Pennsylvania has a landowner program. I believe Illinois has something as well.
Kansas.
Yep. So, you know, it's an option if you don't want to shoot deer in the summertime because it's too much work, and, you know, you don't want to quarter a deer in the middle of a field when it's 95 degrees and take a game bag and fan the bugs off of it while you're going, you
Yep.
know, because that's what you're doing.
Yep.
But, you know, maybe a landowner tag might solve some of those issues and might give some encouragement to guys to shoot some does. You know, does aren't and this is just another feather in the cap for a DMU base. Does aren't a problem everywhere, right? They're not an issue all over the state. So, and I know there's going to be some guy that listens to this and say, well, there's just no does up here, right? If he's in northern lower UP, or somebody's going to listen to this and be like, there's not too many does in this state. There's not enough does up here, right?
The Amish have killed them all.
There you go. And there's going to be some guy in southern Michigan, too, where we know there's too many does, and he's going to say, well, there's not as much deer as there needs to be, right? You just can't please everybody. But you need to control the problems where the problems are. You really do. And that's what it comes down to. And that's just, like I said, another feather in the cap for the DMU-based program. I know southern Lenawee County, I did a doe poll. I hosted a doe poll with Drew Whalen a couple weeks ago, and he called me and asked me if I'd, you know, help him out with it. And we had never met before, right? Like, just kind of like me and Nate did, just linked up at a deer thing, you know, and bump into Adam at, you know, Mobile Hunters Expo. I think it was like, you just bump into these guys that you talk to all the time. And he called me and said, hey, can you help out with this? And he said, you know, we can hunt my lease in the morning before the doe poll. I said, okay, deal. You ain't got to tell me twice, right? So that night they had shot 2 does. And when I got there, it was like, get there, jump in the truck. We're going to take care of these deer, go hang them for the night. I'm like, all right, cool. Jump in his truck. And while we're driving through town, I noticed deer everywhere, like downtown, like through gas stations, like on the cemetery, like deer. Get back to the house, there's deer tracks across his front porch in the snow. And I'm like, this is one of those populated areas that has a problem that they talk about, you know. But regardless of that, ratio everywhere is the one thing that's consistent, you know, and whether it's Northwest 12, the lower, if you got a lot of does, you need a lot of bucks to make that ratio. And, you know, obviously you want to decrease that number, but if you don't have a lot of bucks, you don't want a lot of does either, because you don't want to run them down. You don't want to stress them out. You want to control that ratio and make things better. I'm ranting right now, so you guys feel free to interrupt me.
No. I was just thinking about, like, so going forward, like, what is the plan? Like, for, you know, you said you've got, like, you know, 20 or so guys, you know, give or take, that you're going to get to try to come to a few of these meetings here or there. How does that work? 'Cause I remember you talking about before, like, and Nate, you went and you spoke at one of them. And isn't there like a couple of different ways to do it? Like, you can either just sign up the day of and get X amount of time, or you can sign up ahead of time and you get more time to speak.
Yeah. So, you know, and I actually, that's been a question a lot of guys have been asking me. So I actually just posted the public appearance guidelines on the Whitetail Project page. If anybody, like,
The Michigan
really is
Whitetail
interested
Project.
in one.
The
What's
Michigan Whitetail Project.
Yeah, there
Make
you
sure
go.
you don't forget the Michigan.
All right, there you go. So, they have an actual set of guidelines, right? And to a guy that's never been to one of these meetings, it's like classroom style. You're facing the commissioners. When you go in there, there's cards in the back of the room, and you can sign up for 3-minute comments. So if you're sitting there and you hear something that maybe just doesn't sit right with you and you want to speak to it, or say you just go there and you have some input you want to add, you fill out a card, you're entitled to 3 minutes to speak to the commission. And if you need more time than that, you can sign up prior to the Friday before the meeting. And, that day shifted, so I don't know if that time slot is going to shift too, but it always was the Friday prior to the meeting. You would sign up and you get 5 minutes to speak. That's your time. You can say whatever you want.
That's what I did. I think I spoke maybe a couple of times, but I think I used that. The one time I did the week before, but I think she missed my name or something, so they kind of redid it. But sometimes like, that. Yeah, that guy again. We don't want him talking for 5 minutes. But no, I think it's a great question, Adam, because I was that guy that was wanting to know what to do to help, and we're trying to like coordinate a group of people to go and speak very consistently. And the very first meeting I went to last year, it was apparent that the animal lovers, or I think we all like animals, but the ones who maybe simulate those with human characteristics more than we do, they were very organized. Like they all spoke on the exact same thing. You could tell that this meeting, we are going to direct our effort here. I would see the same people months later, and they were like, we're all going to talk about this point now. And they were very coordinated in how they were talking. And I felt like that was lacking from the hunter's aspect or the outdoorsman aspect. So if we can all come in there with a concise, controlled kind of demeanor or like a serious nature, it is going to stand out to the board and all the people in the room. The first meeting we went to, we had a whole group of people, and it was like apparent that they had never seen our faces before, and they were like, what is going on? And when we were done talking, and we kind of were all respectful, we all expressed our desire. Guys got up there like me who didn't know what they're going to talk about maybe at first, and they went and spoke their minds. We had a guy who was an anti-hunter come up to us after and say, hey, I was anti-hunting just because I didn't realize there were actually people like you out there. And hearing that was like, whoa, like we do have a voice and we can inflict positive change. So I think even if you can't make it to these meetings because a Wednesday on a work day is difficult to do, I can relate to that. Adam working, his 2 days a month, he should be able to make it to everyone. I don't know why he hasn't been, but there's my shade back at you for giving me a hard time earlier. I got it in, but I think as a group of guys, we can help move the needle or help a positive direction. Maybe not by going to NRC meetings exactly. Like if you're a guy that can go and wants to go. Like, and we can talk about this stuff, and you can reach out to me or Josh or Adam. And we can kind of like talk about what we're thinking, why maybe you want more info, why we like one buck rule, or why we think these things, or we can get you in touch with someone who's substantially better, more well spoken on it than maybe I am or anyone else. But you can talk to your select group. We all have our own echo chamber of people we hang out with, or we hunt with, or we talk deer with. And I think if we continue to elaborate and maybe push that idea of why we're thinking it, that should slowly trickle. I have seen that idea work with us so-called trophy hunters. My neighbors and the group of guys that I have hunted with the last 10 years have all gotten on the same page or a similar page. And my wall reflects that. And I know a whole bunch of other guys' wall reflect shooting bigger, older bucks, because as a single individual, you can only do so much, but as a group, you can do more. And I think we got to kind of take that approach into this. So that's the one thing I kind of wanted to say and just talk about before we were done. But I think there's a lot of different ways to help. And if the NRC meeting thing maybe is not for you, you can do some stuff, behind the scenes as well.
Yeah, I felt, and also what I said, like we've got, Josh is getting this group of guys together. I feel like I messed up because I gave like a number of people that you have. Like there's never enough people, and the whole idea when I talked with Josh, and I think when I was on Brett Postal's podcast, we talked a little bit about it, and it was the discussion about, like, is it everybody all at once, or is it just a presence over time, just to be consistent, to show up, because everybody can't make it, because, you can't just stop your lives for these meetings unless you are going to be a lobbyist. So to have a group of people who can be rational, show up and have conversations, I think is important to be, involved in that manner, rather than just be like a whole mob going in there and, just try to take over by sheer numbers, right?
Well, the mob needs to happen in April. Like, that's what Josh kind of talked about. Like, we got a chance. Let's do the mob in April, guys. Let's go.
The thing is, though, like I said, respectfully,
Yeah.
respectfully, like, packing the room, I want nothing more this year. Nothing more. Like, if anybody's going to give me a birthday present out there, like, just come to the April meeting, or May, right? I'm a blue collar guy. I'm a working guy like everybody else. I have sacrificed, and I realize a lot of people aren't going to do this, a lot of PTO days that I would normally be hunting to get out and go to these meetings and try to change something for seasons ahead. I don't know that could be more than 20. Some guys can be pulling my leg and not show up. But when we get closer to that April, I'll release it a little bit. I'm going to have an event probably the night prior and try to get some guys together and, kind of talk things through a little bit, and we can all kind of prep each other for the night going into it. A little war room action, I guess, going into the night before, but it is, important. I don't want to mob in there. I want to go in there respectfully and represent ourselves as the ones that are going to run the deer herd going forward. There's a lot of people aging out right now, and you don't see a lot of people in that mid-range coming in. You see a lot of guys in their 60s and up. You don't see anybody in their 40s and 50s in those rooms. Or in your 30s, I guess, you just don't see it unless they're an anti-hunter. So want to bridge that gap and try to make a consistent presence going forward. It's not going to be about whether or not we can get this done. When we do get this done, it's going to be about keeping it. And that's something I'm thinking about now. Whatever change we do enact or help to, right? That's not about us. This is about everybody. It's going to be about keeping it in the years to come. So it's not just going to be a one-trick pony. It's going to be going forward, couple meetings a year, for everybody. If this is what interests you, you're going to have to stay involved and stay in touch. And that doesn't mean you have to physically be there. It means that you're going to have to stay in touch with these commission as they come and go, as they play musical chairs. You're going to have to get to know the new ones. And this is important, that we're not just mobbing the room to get one change. This is going to be us stepping up and taking leadership for the future.
Well, I can say that, just knowing you over this time, from being just like a hunter guy with similar interests to, really stepping up and being vocal to taking action. I really appreciate what you're doing, and, obviously bringing people together, but being able to kind of like shoulder the burden of, because we've talked about, there's so much shade being thrown at anybody that wants to make a difference. It doesn't matter if it's right, wrong, or indifferent. Anyone that's trying to make any change, there's people coming at you from every direction. And I think you're handling it very well, and just putting it out all aside and just moving forward for the health of the herd, for the health of the resource. And I just have to say, I applaud you for that. And that's why I keep having you back on to kind of go and say, because some people are just, kind of whack jobs, they have like an agenda, like you have an agenda, but it's for the greater good. It's not a Josh thing. It's not, I'm passionate about what I want. What you want is for overarching. I mean, you're borderline communist, but it's okay because it's for the deer.
It's for the deer.
Borderline communist. All right. Well, you know what? I'll appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Commie for deer. That's a good hashtag right there. Oh, it's great.
Oh, man.
So
I don't know if you want to end this or not, Adam, but like I want to know about Josh's bucky shot this year, because I briefly we talked about a little bit, but you punched a tag, right, Josh?
I did punch a tag.
But like I'm intrigued by the setup, because I know like when you've been on with me in Michigan Wild before, we're all talking a little tactics here. Like you weren't very high up in a tree, I don't think, were you?
No, I wasn't. I climbed that tree without climbing sticks.
Oh, I love it.
It was a little like cedar that I knew about in the bedding area. It was my second sit on that deer. I tried to go too deep the first sit.
Dude, that's like a reoccurring theme with you. Come on.
There's like 2 trees in that bedding area, and I tried to push all the way down to one of them. And you know how it is when you get into places in the dark and you kind of get turned around a little bit sometimes when they're real thick in there, and that place is super thick. So I probably got in there was in before daylight, but just not quite the clean setup you wanted. I probably made a little bit of noise going in there and then didn't see anything.
Did you have the stress sweats when you're going through it? Like you're like stressed because you're like, oh, I'm going, then you start sweating more because you're frustrated. Do you have that going on?
Maybe, I'm usually like that anyway. But then the second time I got in super clean, and I accessed from a different way that I never usually access from. And that deer came in just super vocal, super like aggressive. And it was one of those things I talk about that like, I want more up here. He came in, pushed off a smaller buck. I could hear him like 25 yards from me and could never see him because it was just so thick. Then finally he just popped out in that little opening in front of me, that little staging area. And I had put a mock scrape in there in that opening in the summertime. And it took off and then kind of died down. And when I went in there and actually shot that deer, I noticed he made 2 more scrapes that were not far from there, and he was rubbing everything up in there, and he was just super aggressive, man. And it was just one of those things where I was like, yep, had to get him.
Awesome.
Like
what made you pick that access? You said different access, and I feel like that kind of, you feel like you were successful because of that. What made you make that tweak? Do you remember?
I don't really know. It was just one of those things where it was like, okay, I've been accessing this area from, X location so many times. And mind you, that was my second time in there this year, but I've hunted in that bedding area in years past, and I've always accessed from the same spot. And I've taken bucks out of there before, 1 buck out of there before, but it's such a weird spot that I can never really pin down where they're coming from. You know what I mean? Like I can never really pin down where they're coming from. I just know that they're ending up there. And just that day, for some reason, I was like, I'm going to access this differently. And the only reason that I've never done that before is because the walk is shorter. and thinking like, well, I don't want to take a short walk. And mind you, it was still like 900 yards or something from the parking spot. So it wasn't like short,
Mm-hmm.
but, you know, thinking like I never wanted to walk across the oak flat to access that bedding area. But this year there was no oak, like the oaks weren't dropping in that area.
Mm.
So I was like, well, I'm going to walk across it. Like, and it just worked out.
Yeah, for not knowing, you just laid out a pretty good example of why you did it. I like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. Like, and I think your season goes like that. Like, I think of like my successes I've had. You make these decisions, and in the moment, you might not really be like, I have no idea why I did that. But it's like, well, I do actually. Like, some of these things did, and it just felt right to do that.
Yeah.
And then you shot a deer. You know, you could hop in your stand without even needing a stick. I mean, that's pretty cool, man.
You know what was funny is coming down. So I came down to go get the deer. And when I left my stand up in the tree, when I went back up to get my stand, I get my stand on my back and I step on the bottom branch to come down and it just snapped. And I was like, thank God I didn't do that in the dark, you know, like, because like I might have busted my ass. Or,
That was a two-use
you know,
tree is what you're saying. Or two-use.
maybe, I don't know.
Oh,
Not many trees back there. I was probably like 8 feet,
Yeah.
like not that high, you know, so I can't imagine many other people are climbing up in that tree.
No.
It definitely has the remnants of Josh's screw-in bow holders in there from a couple times.
Public land legal bow holders is what, you know, I've heard that
Actually,
phrase.
when I shot the deer, I did use a latitude strap.
Nice.
I did.
So I got a question, like nothing to do necessarily with the deer, but you said you left your stand up in there. I watch these videos of guys, you know, when they shoot their deer, blah, 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 and they always leave their stuff up in the tree. And like, so Nate, do you do that? Like, well, you're hunting lock-ons. Like,
Heavens no.
You're hunting ladder stands.
I didn't set a lock on one time this year, Adam.
But I never do that.
No, I pull it down the whole time. It gives me time to like, I weigh, I pack everything up, and then I go blood trailing. That's how I always do it.
It's like I'm already, you know, I'm not going to get back up in there. Like I mean, it's.
I'm
If
happy.
I was 20 feet high, I might have pulled everything down.
Yeah, I'm happy you said lock-ons and not ladders, so I appreciate you, Adam.
I've been in some of your spots. I've seen them.
Those weren't mine.
If I was 20 feet high, I might have pulled everything down.
Yeah.
But being like that, it was just quick up and down, just grab the stand. And
He was too excited. It's okay. He wanted to go get that
what?
deer, man.
After the
So what? I guess
devastation I had in Illinois,
it was like, it sounds like it was a great hunt. Like you're talking about all these memorable things, but like my head's like, why do you think like how big of an area are we talking? Like that buck kind of made that his home. So like what time of year was this? And like, it doesn't sound like it was a giant bedding area because you only had like really two options, but it's something like he was there that time of year.
yeah. You know what's weird? I never had pictures of that deer. I ran a camera from so when it gets summertime, you can't access it. Like unless you're cutting, you can't get back in there. It's just so thick. It's nasty. I mean, I'm sure guys would do it, but I hate summer scouting and it's just not what I want to do. So I hung a camera in there in like last February. Never had a picture of that deer until I was in Illinois hunting. During the first week in November, I had a picture of him. And then he just kind of ghosted. And I just that bedding area, I just had a feeling that there was a good one in there. And I ended up, he was the one. You know, that week I was in Illinois, I had 8 different bucks in that bedding area.
Oh,
and there was one day, I think it was November 7th, I had all of them on the camera. All of them. And he wasn't the biggest one, but I thought he was a big 6-point. And I got really excited because I always wanted to shoot a big 6-point. And that'd be the downside of an APR, right?
Yep.
You beat me to it.
Yeah. And he ended up having broken tines. So, once I got him down, got up close to him on the ground and realized, what it was, but still, couldn't be happier. Had a rough season up until that. And, like I said, the oaks weren't dropping. It was hard to pinpoint where they were coming from. And it was just, it's a big bedding area. It sets up big. Space wise, it's very big, which makes it almost more difficult. But at the same time, it doesn't hunt big. You would have to get in there to understand what I'm saying. Space wise, there's a lot of space in there, but it hunts very small.
So do you think those deer were in there more than what your camera was showing because
Absolutely.
of the space? Okay.
There is a very small opening where you could throw a camera and not get false triggers all day long, every day.
Because that's where my brain was going. Was like,
edge.
Yeah. My brain was like, because I have spots that are void. They're ghost towns until seasonal time, right? Or the right doe comes in there, and that's when all the bucks move in. But then I also have other spots where I've thought that, and then when I go hunt it and see with my eyes, I'm like, holy cow, they're actually here, like way more than I ever thought they would be here. So there's kind of like, those areas aren't created equal always.
Yeah, when I hunted that first tree, I scouted my way out that day, and there was all types of intersections in like this real brushy, a lot of dogwood mixed in with just like void vegetation basically on a cattail edge. And on all these trails there was fresh poop, like a lot of doe scat, a lot of sign, but because where you have to put the camera to see anything, you just don't get that visual. So like I know that there's a lot of deer that run through there and they kind of run the further transition. And then there's also like the far tree that I hunted in there was a bed under it. And then there's 3 other trees that are a little bit further out in the marsh that all have beds under them. So you just have to pick the right trail on the right day and hope he's moving, kind of where you think. It's one of those luck of the draw situations. Like you're probably even better off hunting him on the oak flat, know.
Last question. Would you have hunted it a third time if you didn't connect on the second set?
I don't know that I would have.
Yeah, I know.
And the only reason I say that is because he's not the deer I was after. So I was looking for something else all season long and just on a whim went in there and, threw a sit at that spot to see if anything was moving through there. And I just think I would have got back on that other deer and picked up where I left off last year. But because I'm running my mouth about one buck,
I was just Adam was gonna ask it. I knew it.
So but that's not even it.
Okay.
So, but my question is like, so Nate's really familiar about like how I feel about deer and like trail cameras and all this stuff and like the validation and like just being surprised, like how you feel like in that moment. So you said, okay, that's not the deer I was after. That's not what I was hunting or whatever. So the one buck thing does come up and that's pretty interesting. Right. So we can expound on that, but do you think that like had your season not been going the way that it had been going, like you said, like, so devastation in Illinois and like, you're kind of like on a low spot, right? Like, was that like what do they call them? Like a slump buck, right? Like oh, I
No.
got, it's shit. I gotta put some meat in the freezer. I gotta do something.
No, see,
Or
that's
were you excited because of the situation and he came in all vocal and the things that you were, you know what I mean?
yeah, that had a lot to do with it. I will say that was one of the coolest hunts I've ever had. I've never had a deer that vocal, and I mean, I have it all on video and I have it posted, but it was so much different in person, than what comes across in that video. And like, I don't take it back at all. I don't want to make it sound like it wasn't a good buck. Like, I couldn't be happier. Um, my only downside was that it wasn't an actual 6-point that I was really hoping for, but definitely wasn't a slump buck by any means. I the one buck thing, it's weird because so there's a part of me that I might not have, if there's a mental part of me that thinks I might not have targeted that deer in that area if I had one buck tag, which in reality might not be true because I treated my season like I had one buck tag. I haven't buck hunted, I'm gonna shoot one buck this year. Like, that was my mentality. But I don't know that I would have targeted him like if it was law. Like, there might be a different impact on my mind, just a different mental shift. Can't guarantee it, but definitely wasn't a slump buck.
Because that's the one thing that I always think about, like, the excitement and the like, the way that you tell that story and like how excited you were. I feel like there's so many people that like never pick up their bow or don't, they rob themselves of that because of the big ones that are on camera, right? They're like, oh, and one of them staring right at me here. and it's just, to me, it's like how you're feeling like in that moment, like, and to be, in that spot where you've been trying to figure it out, and this deer shows up and he's, before you saw that deer pop out of there, that could have been a frickin' 150-inch 10-point.
Yeah.
And that's probably what you thought, because whatever you had on camera, all these other things, and everything that's going through your mind, and then you're like, oh shoot, and that's how, people shoot the wrong buck or, whatever, because of those types of situations. But there's also that where the people are just like, oh, there's bigger ones in here. I'm not even going to bother. And I feel like you rob yourself of that excitement. And then, just like I'll say to anybody, like, when you're hunting with a group of people, like, you're robbing everybody else of that excitement too.
I've heard that. He believes it 100%.
You're selfish.
But here's my counter to that, Adam, because I had 2 instances this year where I rattled in 2 just gorgeous young 10 points. Like, I'm talking like I am like excited for 2 years from now. Whew, I am like already looking forward to it. And when those deer came in and they were in bow range and I could have shot at them, I don't say pass anymore because of Adam, because you never know. Nothing's guaranteed. And
shoot him in the back of the
shoot
head.
in the back of the head with a recurve. At close range, it happens. The best of us. But I don't feel like I robbed myself in that situation, because I think about this crap now because of you. So thank you. But I was so jacked when they like moved off. Like, I got the excitement. Like I did, pull the bow back and bend limbs. And I do think, not thinking about that way, I know there are deer in years past where, when they did expose themselves and they might have been a beautiful young deer, that I was like, nope, not going to shoot that deer. I was almost disappointed. because it wasn't the deer that I was thinking it would be, or I was like, come on, really? Like another young buck? Like, who am I, right? Like so I do think the shift of focus last couple of years of me being like enjoying those moments more did make, my hunt the last couple of years really, really fun and bring that back. Like, I mean, I literally was shaking like that deer when I rattled and I turned that deer and he came in, like you hear my voice in the video, like, oh my gosh, he's coming. And then I'm like, I don't know what he is. I can't tell. And then like I realized what he was, like, okay, I'm not going to shoot him. And I was still like, as I'm filming him, I'm like breathing hard. And like, it's like, okay, that Nate, that hunter that I was this year was missing in, years past. So just because Adam's saying don't rob yourself of excitement doesn't mean you got to punch a tag or draw blood. You can enjoy it that way too. But don't talk yourself out of it unless you're okay with the aftermath, or don't like Josh is not doing, right? Like he's like, oh my gosh, it's a big 6 and like this is cool and you love it. I remember talking to you after you did it and you were jacked. So you want to enjoy the moment, whatever that may be, and however you do, fill that tag.
Yeah, and I've said this on your podcast before, Adam, but like I've been on to some big deer. Like I've been on to some really good deer here in Michigan. But at the end of the day, I'm a realist about my season and the situation that we're in. And I'm a public land hunter in Zone 3. I'm not hunting vast tracts of land, and I try to keep that 3-year-old buck and up. That's my baseline for myself. I think it's realistic, it's reasonable, and it still kind of is on par with, my mission, I guess you would say. So as long as I'm hitting that metric for myself and those are my goals, then, I'm happy with it. Now, if I would have got super excited and lost my excitement and shot a forkhorn, then I would have been like, wow, I can't believe I just did that. But that's not exactly the way it played out. He's a good buck, and Euro mounted, it's a good one for the trailer. It's, it's be a good one. So it's, I've never done that.
Josh,
so.
I don't know if you pay attention, but I almost shot my first public land buck this year. It was a button buck. So I sent an arrow with Adam's bow at a button buck this year. So I can relate to having fun and enjoying the moments.
Man, I passed a button buck this year, and like he was right under me. I could tell,
Yeah.
And I get back to the parking lot and I run into these 2 old timers, and I talk about them all the time. As though like people are probably starting to know, because I always see these 2 old timers, and I meet up with them in the parking lot. We kind of pull up at the same time. They're getting ready to leave. These guys are like 80 years old, man. They're great. They're awesome dudes. They hunt public. They hunt, like one of them hunts like a mile back. Like they move their ladder stands like 3 times a week. Like these dudes are just awesome. All right. And he comes up to me. He's like, Josh, you see anything? And man, I saw a button buck this morning. He's like, oh, I just shot that one. That's a good eater right there. Come on.
Yeah. My bow doesn't shoot button bucks, but Adam's does. So that's why I used Adam's bow and tried
He cursed my buck. He cursed my bow.
It did.
My bow was 1 for 1 until he put his dirty little hands on it.
Oh, man, in my younger years, I shot a button buck thinking it was a doe.
Mm-hmm.
And,
this is the first time ever. This is the first time I ever like purposely shot at it. Like I was like, oh, we like knew instantly that's a button buck, and it's like, I think I'll try to shoot it. And Adam's like, dude, it'll be your first public land buck. And I was like, that's hilarious. I need to kill this thing.
I just totally missed out on the fact that you were purposefully doing
yes,
this.
Purposely, yes. We were like, let's kill this thing.
He did it with my bow. Like his bow was hanging on the hook.
Yeah.
And he's like, my bow does not shoot button bucks, so give me that thing.
True.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
See, those are the stories, though.
Yes.
Like that's
Yes.
that's the good time, and
yeah.
That's good stuff right there. I'm with you though, Nate. I'd have grabbed his bow too.
Yeah, exactly. Cooler story.
Cooler story.
But yeah, that's so. I mean, again, I just appreciate like everything that you're doing with everything. Where, like, for more information, like if people want to know, like let's say that they want to know like where to follow up with the meetings, like where online can they find information about all of this stuff?
Yeah, so Natural Resource Commission has a website on, Michigan's michigan.gov or whatever it is. They list all the meeting dates and the agendas when they do come out. You can actually go back and look at prior agendas too. Like if you're interested in the deer management plan that I posted the other day, right? Like this one right here that Brent put out. You can go back on the agenda. There's a clickable link on the agenda for that deer management plan. The finance committee plan, looking at that is on there, clickable link. There's a lot of information that you can go on there and get. It's not like the most visually appealing website, but you can go on there, get the dates, get the times, location, and that's where you can find that. If you want to email commissioners, all of their contact information is posted on there, as well as, NRC at michigan.gov. Yeah, that's their email. NRC at michigan.gov. So send that email, share your comments and concerns. That'll, go to all the commissioners. And, outside of that, I try to break down some of that information on my page. So if you can't navigate something on there, you have a question, I can help out with that as well. And I have a lot of that information posted on my stuff too. So that's
all right. And what is your page again?
The Michigan Whitetail Project.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. And yeah, you too, Nate.
It's a pleasure.
All right,
I
fellas.
appreciate it. Thanks, guys.